On February 20, 1954, a delegation of human-looking extraterrestrial races met with the Eisenhower administration in an unsuccessful effort to reach an agreement on the US's thermonuclear weapons program. The apparent stumbling block was that these extraterrestrial races were not willing to provide technology that might be used by the military-industrial interests that dominated the Eisenhower administration and set the tone for subsequent extraterrestrial-human dialogue. The principled opposition of this group of extraterrestrials to being co-opted into an emerging military-industrial extraterrestrial complex, MIEC, marks an important indicator of a large grouping of human extraterrestrial races who lie outside of the web of interlocking interests that make up the MIEC in the US and elsewhere on the planet. This second category of extraterrestrial races is primarily human and can easily integrate with human society in the manner described by Dean and others, where they can be indistinguishable from the rest of humanity. These races are described to be from star systems such as Lyra, Vega, Pleiades, Sirius, Procyon, Tau Ceti, Ummo, Andromeda and Arcturus, who have provided some of the genetic material for the seeding of humanity on Earth. According to Alex Collier, a total of 22 extraterrestrial races have provided genetic material for the human experiment. These include reptilian, Grey and Anunnaki races, as well as those races in this second group which Collier describes as benevolent, that we, as a product of extraterrestrial genetic manipulation, are possessors of a vast gene pool consisting of many different racial memory banks, also consisting of at least 22 different races. Because of our genetic heritage, and because we are spirit, the benevolent extraterrestrial races actually view us as being royalty. As a result of this genetic linkage, the extraterrestrials in this group outside of the MIEC apparently view humanity in much the way a protective parent might view an adolescent son/daughter in a dangerous environment. The vital interests of races in this category are to ensure that global humanity evolves in a responsible way without endangering both itself and the greater galactic community of which it is part. There are two parts to this grouping of extraterrestrials. The first are extraterrestrials that have historically inhabited the Earth's subterranean dwellings, and are described as remnants of ancient human civilization that followed a separate evolutionary path to surface humanity. The second are extraterrestrials that have off-world origins but have humanoid features to the extent that some of them can easily intermingle with the rest of humanity without being easily identified. Telosians are subterranean extraterrestrials, described to be remnants of previous human civilizations on the Earth's surface such as Lemuria and Atlantis, and are thus genetically related to humanity. The most famous description of one of these ancient races is found in the posthumously published diaries of Admiral Richard Byrd, who describes a secret expedition to the North Pole where he was taken into the subterranean dwelling of an advanced race with Nordic physical characteristics. He was shown some of the wondrous technology of this society and also met the leader of this advanced subterranean race, who allegedly said, "We have let you enter here because you are of noble character and well known on the surface world. Admiral, you are in the domain of the Ariani, the inner world of the Earth. Admiral, I shall tell you why you have been summoned here. Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was at that alarming time we sent our flying machines to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. You see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely, that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Now you have been chosen to be witness here that our world does exist. You see, our culture and science is many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral." While there continues to be controversy over the veracity of Admiral Byrd's diaries, there are a number of reported encounters with representatives of an advanced subterranean human race. A large subterranean city called Telos is argued to lie below Mount Shasta, California, and has been described by individuals who have either physically traveled to this city and witnessed it, or those who claim to have telepathically communicated with the occupants of this city. Prominent UFO researcher, William Hamilton, claims to have met representatives of Telos who described to him the advanced technology and structure of Telos and their connection to the former civilization of Lemuria. Hamilton described a Telosian, Bonnie, and her family as follows: Bonnie, her mother, Rana Mu, her father, Ra Mu, her sister Judy, her cousins Larry and Matox, live and move in our society, returning frequently to Telos for rest and recuperation. Bonnie relates that her people use boring machines to bore tunnels in the earth. These boring machines heat the rock to incandescence, and then vitrify it, thus eliminating the need for beams and supports. A tube transit tunnel is used to connect the cities that exist in various subterranean regions in our hemisphere. The tube trains are propelled by electromagnetic impulses up to speeds of 2,500 miles per hour. One tube connects with one of their cities in the Mato Grosso jungle of Brazil. They grow food hydroponically under full spectrum lighting with their gardens attended by automatons. The food and resources of Telos are distributed in plenty to the 1.5 million population that thrives on a no-money economy. According to the author Diane Robbins, who claims to have telepathically communicated with the Telosians, they are the remnants of the ancient Lemuria who made Mount Shasta their home after the destruction of their continent. Originally numbering 15,000, this Lemurian remnant has apparently flourished in the underground caverns of Mount Shasta and grown to a population of 1.5 million where psychotronic technologies, involving crystals and the highly developed mental abilities of the Telosians, are used to maintain an incredibly advanced society that interacts with extraterrestrials from a number of star systems. The Telosians are reported to specialize in maintaining human longevity, and integrating harmonious technologies and belief systems for surface-based humans. The Telosians and other subterranean extraterrestrials seek to curtail the most damaging aspects of human extraterrestrial technological agreements while assisting in the evolutionary growth in human consciousness. The main activities of the Telosians can be inferred to be in helping surface humanity learn of its ancient Earth history, restore human longevity, changing unhealthy belief systems and protecting the environment. The global solutions provided by the Telosians include environmental protection, promoting biodiversity, restoring human health and longevity, and recovery of lost historical knowledge. The off-world human-looking extraterrestrial have been claimed to have provided some of the genetic material for human evolution, and that many of these extraterrestrials have allowed some of their personnel to incarnate as star seeds on Earth in human families. These star seeds, star children or star people are described by Brad and Francie Steiger as individuals whose souls were formerly incarnated on the worlds of other star systems and then traveled to Earth and decided to incarnate here in order to boost the evolutionary development of humanity. Most of humanity would consider this group of extraterrestrials to be benevolent as described by contactees such as George Adamski, Orfeo Angelucci, George Van Tassel, Howard Menger, Paul Villa, Billy Meyer and Alex Collier, who each explain the nature of their voluntary interactions with these human-looking extraterrestrials. These contactees often provide physical evidence in the form of photographs, film and/or witnesses of their contacts with extraterrestrial races. The most extensively documented and researched contactee is Edward Billy Meyer, who provided much physical evidence for investigators. These off-world human extraterrestrial races appear to have different specialties as a result of unique histories and planetary migrations due to galactic upheavals and conflicts. It is worth exploring the main activities of each race to understand how they either currently interact with humanity or how they may better interact with humanity to address global problems. It is appropriate to begin the discussion of these off-world extraterrestrial races and their main activities by focusing on a star system that has been described as the source for the spread of human civilization in the Milky Way galaxy, the constellation of Lyra. One of the first contactees to describe Lyra was Billy Meyer, who received much public attention as a result of his alleged visits from Pleiadians/Pleiadians from 1975 to 1986, which he supported with material evidence that continues to confound those skeptical of Meyer's claims. Comprehensive investigations by a number of individuals and organizations found that Meyer's evidence was not fabricated and therefore constituted significant support for his testimony of extraterrestrial contact. Due to the amount of physical evidence he had provided over the years, Meyer has gained great credibility, and the consistency and coherence of his testimonies suggest that he is indeed an important spokesperson for an extraterrestrial race. Meyer was told by his Pleiadians contacts of the star system of Lyra and its human inhabitants. The Swiss Pleiadians have described their ancient ancestry, and consequently ours, as originating, before the Pleiades, in a far sun system in a star group near what we now know as the Ring Nebula of Lyra, for which we have called them Lyrans in the same manner as we refer to the human beings from what we call the Pleiades. These early Lyrans in their numerous migrations in their great space arcs went to many other star systems and found suitable habitations, and put down colonies, such of which flourished and eventually launched their own space travelers. Meyer further reported of a physical contact with a Lyran ship in 1977 where the Lyrans described their world and the other star systems with whom they cooperated. Alex Collier describes the start of the Lyran civilization as revealed to him by extraterrestrials from Andromeda. Based on the age of the suns and the planets in our galaxy, it was decided that the human life form was to be created in the Lyran system. The human race lived there for approximately 40 million years, evolving. The orientation of the human race in Lyra was agricultural in nature. Apparently, we were very plentiful and abundant, and lived in peace. The Lyrans possess Nordic features and are quite possibly the Elohim described in religious traditions both on Earth and around the galaxy. Due to the Lyrans' role in the genesis of the human presence in the galaxy, the Lyrans can understandably be argued to have the most detailed understanding of human origins and galactic history. They can be described as the galactic historians for the human species. It can be inferred that the Lyrans help in disseminating the truth about the evolution of human races in the galaxy, and have a deep understanding of galactic human culture and of the human spirit. The Lyrans have been further described as follows. Those from Lyra have an affinity for origins and ancient histories. So they would be useful to you to understand the past in order to transform it. As you understand your past and your origins, you may be able in consciousness to go back, pattern by pattern, peel off the layers of the onion, and find your true nature. They would be excellent guides in this process, this psychological process for humanity, of understanding its motivations and its history and how it came to be. In conclusion, the Lyran's main activities are in disseminating the unique history of the human race in the galaxy, and assisting in understanding human motivations and potentials. The global solutions the Lyrans provide include accurate information about human history, understanding galactic history, discovery of the human essence, diplomacy and conflict resolution, and global education. According to Billy Meyer, another race of extraterrestrials that physically contacted him were from the Vega star system within the constellation of Lyra. The vegans were a darker or blue-skinned group of humans, and were likely the blue race of advanced humans mentioned in various Vedic texts, and from whom the Hindu gods Vishnu and Krishna derived. The Brazilian contactee, Jefferson Souza, claims that he met the Vegans of Lyra, who he described as looking very similar to natives of India. According to Alex Collier, Vega was the first star system in Lyra to be populated by humans. In addition to the Nordic-looking humans from Lyra, the vegans played an important colonizing role throughout the galaxy. The first extraterrestrials who came to Earth were humans from worlds that exist within another dimension, in the area of the Lyra and Vega systems. The first Lyrans, together with the vegans, came to Earth initially 22 million years ago. Their stay here was very brief and they continued their travels to other star clusters and planets. Their history is largely obscure, even though assault groups occasionally continued to return to Earth. Approximately 389,000 years ago, several million Lyrans and vegans again left their native worlds, entered our order of space and time in this dimension, and came to Earth where they mingled with the Earthlings. Significantly, the results of the vegans and Lyrans interbreeding with humans paralleled events described in the Book of Enoch where the Nephilim intermarried with humans and produced a race of giants that eventually died off. Meyer describes these events as follows: they procreated in the normal manner and through the manipulation of genes by genetic engineers. The results of the genetic engineering produced beings that were part human, part animal, and included giants, titans, and other creatures. In the course of hundreds and thousands of years these creatures were displaced once again, and eventually died out because they could not reproduce or because conditions for their life forms proved fatal for them. Further paralleling events described in the Book of Enoch where the leaders of the Nephilim were punished for their activities on Earth, Meyer describes how the ringleaders of the vegans and Lyrans were responsible for numerous transgressions against the native peoples of Earth and other worlds. The many millions of Lyrans and vegans, who had left their native worlds, were headed by 144,207 leaders and sub-leaders, etc., who reigned over their followers in a rather hierarchic manner. The leaders also transferred this behavior to Earth humans with whom they had intermingled in the past to create human descendants of various types. These 144,207 leaders and their subordinates were, indeed, the ringleaders who were essentially responsible for the misdeeds, false teachings, and false religions which were absorbed and imitated by humans on Earth. Not everything the leaders brought to Earth was evil, false, or criminal. However, many valuable items and ideas were presented to the Earthlings with regard to crafts, professions, philosophies, ways of thinking, medicine, technology, and many other things. According to Lisa Royal, the vegans and Lyrans were strategic competitors when it came to the colonizing of other worlds, and eventually began a devastating civil war in the Lyra constellation, the Lyran Wars. Alex Collier also refers to a devastating galactic war in Lyra, but its cause was external rather than an internal civil war between the Lyrans and the vegans. According to Meyer, the vegans returning to Earth in the present era are attempting to assist humanity, atone for past mistakes and to assist vegan starseeds. Like the Lyrans, the global solutions the vegans provide include accurate information about human history and the vegan heritage, understanding galactic history, discovery of the human essence, diplomacy and conflict resolution, and global education. Billy Meyer further described how the Pleiadians, descendants of the Nordic-looking Lyrans, had migrated between a number of star systems before finally settling in the Pleiades constellation. The ancient history of the early Pleiadian ancestors in another home sun system was also described and how they came to travel to the Pleiades. A much earlier migration to this solar system is also described and how and why it failed. The 1/3 survivors of the Pleiadian ancestors' original planet, after its devastation, evolved a new technology, and designed and built the Great Spacer Evacuation Arcs in just 900 years, and began to launch them everywhere for many hundreds of years more. The extraterrestrials visiting Switzerland are the descendants of one of those space arcs which occupied one of the 3 planets engineered for human habitation, in one of the sun systems in what we call the Pleiades today. They have experienced great gains and great losses many times over since that time. In a very real sense, we are descendants of their earliest colonists attempting to settle in this solar system, together with an assortment of aborigines and human exiles from a number of places. The particular star system from which Myers Pleiadians originate is Tegeta, and the main planet is Era. The Pleiadians from Tegeta identified Meyer as one of their chosen representatives with a mission to bring the truth of the extraterrestrial presence to humanity. Semjace, the Pleiadian female who made contact with Meyer, described the Pleiadians as follows: "We are neither guardians of Earth beings nor God-sent angels or similar. Many persons suggest we are watching over Earth and her beings and would control their fates. This is not true, because we only perform a self-selected mission which has nothing to do with supervising or regulating Earth fates. Thus it is wrong to expose us as superterrestrial messengers and guardians." The Pleiadians identified a key aspect of their mission is to warn humanity of the Greys, which they described as follows: "There are also different life forms that have acquired much knowledge and have freed themselves from their environment. They travel through space and occasionally come to Earth. Many of them are rather unpleasant creatures and live in a type of barbarism that frequently is nearly as bad as the terrestrials. You should be aware of them because they often attack and destroy everything that gets in their way. Many times they have even destroyed whole planets or forced their inhabitants into bondage. It is one of our missions to warn the people on Earth of these creatures. Let this be known to the Earth people because the time is approaching when a conflict with these degenerate human creatures, Greys, becomes unavoidable." According to Collier, the Greys and Pleiadians are involved in armed skirmishes in the solar system and other systems such as Sirius B. Other key aspects of the Pleiadian mission, according to Meyer, are to assist in the uplift of human consciousness and to promote the unity of religion. Significantly, the Pleiadians were dismissive of the claims of many other contactees such as Adamski, and thereby implied some exclusivity in relating the truths and dynamics of the extraterrestrial presence. Interestingly, Collier claimed that some Pleiadians groups such as those from Alcyone operate with hidden agendas, while those from Tegeta, for example, Myers Pleiadians, are described as genuinely assisting humanity. Despite the possible hidden agenda of some Pleiadians, most testimony and evidence point to Pleiadians in general having positive interactions with humans, and that they do much to assist in the elevation of human consciousness and assisting humanity in finding freedom from Grey/reptilian influence. In conclusion, the main activity of the Pleiadians appears to be helping humanity find freedom from oppressive structures through education and consciousness raising. The Pleiadians can assist in find global solutions such as universal human rights, participatory democratic systems, the evolution of human consciousness and global education. One of the many human space colonies spawned by the Lyrans was eventually established on planets in the Rigel solar system in the Orion constellation. At some point in its history, Rigel with its Nordic population presumably underwent a destructive civil war and was taken over by Greys. According to George Andrews, a Nordic from the star system of Procyon, Kyla, revealed much information about the Rig aliens, Perseans and Greys to a human contactee whose information was consistent with other sources and Andrews concluded was credible. The contactee described Kyla as follows: "Kyla looked like a tall handsome human, slender but muscular, masculine yet ethereal. He appeared either naturally or artificially to have black around his eyes, almost like coal. His face was close to exquisite, but definitely masculine. He had a gaunt face with high cheekbones and piercing cobalt blue eyes. He had fine blonde hair that was almost shoulder length. He had a muscular neck. His skin was pale flesh color, with a whitish overtone. It is hard to gauge his exact height because of the circumstances under which our encounter occurred, but it was somewhere between 6 and 7 feet." Andrews writes about the history of Rigel as revealed by Kyla to the contactee. "The ancestors of the short Greys were once tall blondes. The Great War took place. Before the Great War, Rigel was a vast empire, which had been the source of most galactic seeding. All Rig aliens were tall blondes. A colony had already been established on Procyon. The Great War was a civil war of Rig aliens versus Rig aliens, and lasted the equivalent of 3 Earth centuries. A group of Rig aliens who realized that the Great War was about to break out took off for the Procyon colony in crude, clandestinely built ships. They were the only Rig aliens to escape the cataclysmic devastation. All those who had remained on Rigel were transformed into short Greys. It appears that Rigel underwent a planet-wide nuclear war and environmental collapse that led to life in underground shelters. It is very unlikely that the transformation of Nordic Rig aliens involved them becoming short Greys whose genetic material is generally accepted as inferior to human races such as the Nordics. The genetic mutation process would have taken much longer than the 3 centuries mentioned. It is more likely that the surviving Rigelian Nordics were incorporated into a planet-wide genetic hybridization program by short Greys from a star system such as Zeta Reticulum who had covertly infiltrated and undermined Rigel prior to and or during the Great War on Rigel. The short greys most likely succeeded in genetically engineering the tall greys using genetic material from the Nordic survivors who were too weak to resist the grey hybridization agenda. These Rigelian tall greys subsequently play a key role in diplomatic initiatives by the greys and serving as a genetic model for new human grey hybrid races that allegedly represent the best of both species. Most of the Rig aliens who fled their planet traveled to the star system of Procyon to restart their civilization. Procyon is a binary star system about 11.4 light-years from Earth, and it was apparently the fourth planet in this system that the Rig aliens established their new colony. According to Andrews, the colony of Procyon flourished until it became embroiled in sinister effort by the greys that now populated Rigel to subvert Procyon. Kyla described the process adopted by the greys in their subversion of Procyon. The greys began to visit us, first a few as ambassadors, then as specialists in various domains where their expertise could be useful to us, as participants in different programs that involved mutual collaboration, and finally as tourists. What had begun as a trickle became a flood, as they came in ever-increasing numbers, slowly but surely infiltrating our society at all levels, penetrating even the most secret of our elite power groups. Just as on your planet they began by unobtrusively gaining control over key members of the CIA and KGB through techniques unknown to them, such as telepathic hypnosis that manipulates the reptilian levels of the brain, so on Procyon through the same techniques, they established a kind of telepathic hypnotic control over our leaders. Over our leaders and over almost all of us, because it was as if we were under a spell that was leading us to our doom, as if we were being programmed by a type of ritual black magic that we did not realize existed. Kyla went on to describe the eventual takeover of Procyon by the Greys and the enslavement of most Procyans that did not escape. Using advanced time travel technology which involved multidimensional consciousness, something which the Greys apparently could not duplicate due to their degraded genetic bodies, a significant number of Procyans were able to escape and began a liberation war from the remote corridors of time. Significantly, the Procyans describe how some of their resistance techniques would be relevant to the situation on Earth. It would be suicidal to attempt to fight the Greys directly with the weapons now at your disposal. One must be rational in attempting to fight back, and understand the proper way to proceed. Your own consciousness is the most potent weapon that is available to you at the present time. The most effective way to fight the Greys is to change the level of your consciousness from linear thinking to multidimensional awareness. They have the technology to throw your planet out of orbit, but there is one key ability that you have and they do not have, the ability to hold in mind imagery that inspires an individual to realize his or her direct personal connection to the source of all that is. That is your key to victory. According to Alex Collier, the Procyans have recently liberated their world from Grey influence, and he describes the Procyans as currently gung-ho when it comes to dealing with the Greys. In conclusion, the Procyans' main activity is in effectively resisting the extraterrestrial subversion by developing a multidimensional consciousness, using mind imagery to protect oneself from extraterrestrial mind control, and monitoring unfriendly extraterrestrial activity. The global solutions that the Procyans can assist in include exposing extraterrestrial subversion, helping end global secrecy of the extraterrestrial presence, promoting multidimensional consciousness, deprogramming mind control, promoting universal human rights, and developing the internet and global communication. Tau Ceti's other human-populated worlds are apparently the star systems of Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani. The researcher, Frank Crawford, interviewed a number of individuals who had physical contact with the Tau Cetians. The first and most significant was an alleged whistleblower who participated in crash retrievals of UFOs. A live occupant was captured and interrogated by U.S. national security officials from a crash near Phoenix, Arizona in 1961. Oscar, the pseudonym used by the whistleblower, described to Frank Crawford the origins of the captured extraterrestrial who was nicknamed Hank. It was later confirmed by Hank that the stars of origin of his people were Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani. In later sessions, Oscar discussed some reasons for the presence of the aliens. He said the why, do not like the situation with some of the small gray aliens. He corrected us when we used the term gray and said that they are actually white. The Tau Cetians feel that the abductions being carried out by some of the Greys are a great injustice to humanity. They are a parasitic race that has and is preying on human civilizations throughout the universe, Oscar relayed. He added that our government's involvement with the Greys is very dangerous and out of control. The Tau Cetians have been preyed upon by these aliens before, and they are working with other races and communities that were also victims. Oscar wants people to know that if they are contacted by the Tau Cetians, humans such as he described, to not be afraid because they are here to help. The revelations by Hank suggest that the Tau Cetians are present to help deal with the covert strategies and activities of the Greys. They in particular are very concerned about the nature of the agreements reached with them by the U.S. shadow government, and in helping individual abductees. According to Oscar, the Tau Cetian, Hank, was tortured, and that this nearly caused an incident with other Tau Cetians who wanted to militarily intervene on behalf of their captured colleague. The events described by Oscar are consistent with the main activity of the Tau Cetians as described in the following telepathic communication. One of the races is from Tau Ceti. They're specialists in intrigue and determining motivations of cloaked societies. They understand the ways that subterfuge can cripple a system. So they would be excellent contacts for undercover work. The second individual who had physical contact with Tau Cetians was an abductee, Jill Waldport, who described to Frank Crawford how she had been contacted by two sets of extraterrestrials, the Greys and a human-looking race that attempted to help her in dealing with the Greys. Jill informed me that the aliens told her they didn't like what some of the aliens were doing to her without her consent. They had come to help her learn how to overcome the deceptions of the Greys and to protect herself. They explained that she needed to psychically build a shield around herself, like a brick wall, when they came for her. This would help keep her from being deceived by their mind tricks. She tried it the next time the Greys came or her and it seemed to work. Crawford then revealed how Jill described the origins of the benevolent extraterrestrials as Tau Cetians. At this point the correlation counter in my mind was working overtime, so I decided to go for gold and ask her if they told her where they were from. Believe it or not, she replied, Tau Ceti, does that make any sense? Later I mentioned to Oscar that I was investigating a case that involved intense interaction with Greys and Tau Cetians showing up to help. He asked where the case was from and I told him near Springfield, Illinois. He rattled off a very accurate description of Jill and said he was aware that she had been contacted. In conclusion, the Tau Cetians' main activities lies in raising awareness of how to deal with the subversion of societies by extraterrestrial races, identifying corrupt elites and institutions, uplifting human consciousness, and developing strategies for negating advanced mind control techniques. The global solutions they can assist in include exposing government/financial corruption and elite manipulation, monitoring extraterrestrial infiltration, deprogramming mind control and implant removal, promoting multidimensional consciousness, diplomacy and conflict resolution.